Hey, in this video we'll be talking about Unreal Engine 4 and using it through the Unreal Editor. So first of all, I wanted to give you an overview of what Unreal Engine can offer. It's used by many AAA game development companies. Tons of games I'm sure you've heard of have used this engine. Gears of War series, Borderlands, Mass Effect, BioShock, recent Batman games, Fable, Kingdom Hearts, tournament fighters like Street Fighter, Tekken, and Mortal Kombat. There's Rainbow Six and the MOBA Smite, the later Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games, and then indie favorites, Rocket League, XCOM, Dungeon Defenders, and even Goat Simulator. Those all use Unreal Engine, and there's a whole lot more. It's extremely popular. So what these games get out of it is access to real-time, high-quality graphics and a very powerful object and event scripting system. When you put those together, and you put them together in a way that's easy to use, it makes these really great games with outstanding visuals possible. And the great thing is that by learning to use Unreal Engine 4, you're learning another tool that the pros actually use. So it's a really great thing to get into as early as you can and get a lot of experience with it, because a lot of game companies are looking for talented folks who know how to use Unreal Engine and the Unreal Editor. So you can go to the Epic Games website, just Google for Epic Games or go to epicgames.com, and you can get the Epic Games launcher. You're going to have to use the Epic Games launcher in order to launch Unreal Engine. So this is what it will look like once you've downloaded and installed it. And there are options on the side for managing game library and managing your installations of Unreal Engine. So right now I have just a couple of versions of Unreal Engine installed. This manages multiple different installations. So right now I've just got these two. And so as of the recording of this video, I'm using Unreal Engine 4.22.3. So let me click that and launch this thing. Alright. So it first pops up with this Unreal Project Browser window. So you can choose from projects you already have. We'll be creating a new project. So click on this tab, and it gives you a couple of options. There are blueprints. These are a visual scripting language, and there's C++. With blueprints, you control objects in your game by connecting logic, kind of like a flowchart, just telling your objects what to do in the game. And C++ is a popular programming language in the games industry, where you can script the same things that you would do in blueprints. So the choice is really whether you'd like to be programming with code, or whether you'd like to be encoding logic with a visual scripting language. You can do scripting in either of those in Unreal Engine. I'm going to choose blueprints for this project, and I'll choose the first person template. If you look down, there's a few options for changing a few settings about how your project is initially set up. We don't really need to mess with these, but make sure that you have the starter content so that you can have some extra things to play around with. Choose where your project ends up on your computer and give it a name. I'm going to call mine Sample FPS First Person Shooter. Can't have a space in there. There we go. Create project. So the editor opens up, and it'll start building your new project and setting things up for you. This is the basic view for the Unreal Editor. You have a viewport, which should look familiar if you've used other game engine editors, and you can see your game in action, and you have panels on the sides for all of the details. In the game viewport, you can left click to turn, and you can move around a little bit with that. You can use WASD to move around. And right click will let you change the facing of the camera, kind of look around, up and down, left and right. where left click is sort of a combination of turning and moving forward and back. Middle click will pan the camera, so you can move left and right and vertically. And so it's kind of moving in the plane that it's facing from. And the mouse wheel will zoom in and out, so you can get a closer look on objects or look farther away at the rest of your scene. You can also use certain modifier keys to change what those buttons do. So use those, navigate around your world, get used to it. It's a handy skill to be able to move around a 3D world. In this first person template, you have a whole bunch of boxes just laying around. You have a character. Let's go look at that guy. There's a character right here. Doesn't look like much. He's a camera with some arms and a weapon. But that's all you need to see in a first-person game. And there's some stuff floating around in the sky here, just hanging out in the air, symbols. You can see some obstacles and other things going on in this scene. So if you go right up here at the top, on this tray up top, there's a play button. This is for playing in the editor to do some testing. And you'll notice something pretty nice about Unreal Engine, that it can jump right into the action very quickly, and this helps you, this gives you a little advantage over other similar editors, because you can rapidly test things out, make some changes, jump right back in, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time to get going in your game. So I can run around in the level with WASD, and you can see that the boxes in here are physical objects. So when I move around and click, I can shoot and bounce them around. If you shoot something that's not simulating physics, it doesn't work. Stationary acts like a solid collider that practically some balls just bounce off of it. If you have your mouse locked in here, you can press Escape key, and that will bring you back into the editor. In the panel on the side here, the Modes panel, you have an object creation option. So with this tab, the Place tab, you can create objects, basic shapes, or some other cool things in here. And there is a paint mode, there is terrain editing, landscape, placing foliage, and geometry editing for some specific types of geometry. And so the most basic thing you can do is just create basic objects like a cube or a sphere. So let me make one of those. Let me just drag a cube out here. Once you place it, you're going to notice that they have those arrow handles attached to them. This gizmo is going to let you adjust the position. So let me just move it out of the ground there. And there are other tools you have up here. So here's the movement one, here's rotation, so you can turn your objects, and there's scaling as well, so you can shrink them down or grow them along one axis, or if you grab multiple handles at once, you can do along multiple axes at the same time. You can also adjust the snapping here, so enable or disable snapping to the grid when you drag things around. So if I move this, it's snapping to very small increments, and I can change what those increments are. So here's 50. These units are Unreal units. They're essentially centimeters, so this is about 50 centimeters each time. And you can also adjust the rotation snap to different angles. Over on the right, you have your world outliner, and that shows you all of the objects in your world currently. You can mess around with their names, rename them. You can toggle their visibility so that it hides them temporarily and disables them in your game. And it also has a hierarchy, so you can see how things are organized, and you can group objects together that way, arrange them into sort of parent and child relationships, or just group them. You have a details panel down under that, and you have to select an object, and then you can see a lot of information about it. So I'm going to select this cube here, and it shows me that it has a transform component. A transform has sort of its basic positional attributes: location, which is a position in 3D space; a rotation, so different rotations about these different axes; and scale, how stretched it is along those different axes. So this gives you very precise control over these different properties. You can just type them in, or you can drag the values, or you can modify them using your tools in the main view. So there are other properties. If you look at these other components, different things that this cube is capable of doing right off the bat. In this one, physics, I'm going to turn on simulate physics, and that's going to have some pretty big implications for your game. When you press play with simulate physics on, this box now is going to behave like a physical object. It has rigid body physics. And if I select that cube and turn that off, you can also go and run into your box if it is physical and knock it around with your own character's collider. He's not very strong. Down at the bottom here, right now it's on the output log and it's showing a bunch of junk that I don't really care about. But if you switch over to the content browser, you can see all of the different file assets and pieces that you can put into your scene. You can also access your blueprints or C++ code files through this panel. Alright, so I'm going to go back up to the content folder. It put me in the first person BP folder. And I'm going to explore this starter content. And let me go into materials and talk about these a little bit. The starter content contains a whole bunch of really nice looking materials that have different texture layers already built into them. These texture layers provide information to the engine about how to apply different photorealistic effects and properties. Materials like these combine several details about how light interacts with your surface when it hits your object. Things like color and the patterns on different materials are given by these texture layers, which are just like images applied over the surface, but you're stacking them up and they have different effects for each layer. There are plenty of other details about how light bounces off of objects. These materials take that into consideration so that Unreal Engine can produce a visual rendering that approaches real life. So let's grab one of these materials. Here's like a cobblestone, and you can just drop it onto objects in your scene, give them a little more visual interest. Some of these aren't necessarily meant to be used in a production game, but you can still drop them on there. Alright, let me see if I can find like a cool shiny one. Let's make that block shiny. Yeah, chrome is cool. Alright, and then try that out. Test pattern. Metal. Chrome. Cool. So this material system makes it really easy to make some really nice visuals in this engine. So you can play around with that. I mentioned back when we were creating our new project that there are two ways to script objects in Unreal Editor. You can use C++, which is a pretty well-known major programming language, or you can use Blueprints. And Blueprints are a visual scripting language that's built into the editor. So the idea behind scripting is that you can tell objects what to do, or you can change them so that their properties change during your game, or you can change their behavior so they respond to events in the game. So pretty much all the visual stuff you can see in the level, you can set up by hand, just dragging things onto the screen. But when it comes to the logical things that happen, relationships between objects, interactions between them, events that go off on timers, moving objects, and all of that, you'll have to do some scripting to make that happen. And typically, if you're a programmer, you'll be using both C++ and Blueprints to do your job in Unreal Engine. And if you're a designer or an artist, you'll pretty much just use Blueprints exclusively. So it's interesting because in a lot of game engines, you'll stick to one kind of scripting language or another, but with Unreal Engine, it's pretty common to see Blueprints mixed in with C++. Alright, well, that's about it for this video, and I hope that you will try to learn Unreal Engine, and the best way to do that is to go and use it. Take it for a spin and explore it. There are also lots of tutorials built into the editor, and a bunch of stuff you'll find online that'll get you even further. See you later.